Fishing trips anywhere, anytime. FishingBooker.com.
Explore historic waterways in 2025 with Scenic on the most inclusive cruise on Europe's rivers. Enjoy up to 5 dining experiences, spacious suites, and butler service. Be immersed in the culture with enriching free choice excursions and exclusive events. Scenic, in a class of its own. Book now and save.
Hey, what's up, happy people? This is Robert Arrington from Deer Meat for Dinner. If you're into bow fishing like I am, you need to check out Cajun Bow Fishing. I've been using their gear for years, from the Sucker Punch Pro to the Winch Pro Reel. It's tough, it's reliable, and it works. Whether you're just getting started or you're ready to take the step to the next level, head over to CajunBowfishing.com and check out everything Cajun Bow Fishing has to offer. I trust their gear because it works. So if you're hitting the water soon, make sure you're rigged up with Cajun Bow Fishing. You will not regret it.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weissoon, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Hunter Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for the modern hunter. Mossberg, American-built, American-strong. Vineyard Max, deer attractants created for the aroma of success, game feeders, and other innovative hunting products. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from the Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert.
Hello, Larry.
Dr. Mike Arnold, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Well, I'm thrilled to have you back on the podcast. I thought we might visit a little bit this morning. You've got a book coming out before too long. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir, and it's going to have quotes from you on the cover, believe it or not. I don't know how. I just had so much extra space, on the cover, and I was trying to fill it up.
Thank goodness. Well, I'm truly honored to have some of that extra space. I've had the good fortune to be able to read the book, and so I know a little bit about it. I love some of the chapters, and fortunately, I was able to be there with you in some of the chapters that you wrote. Let's tell people the title and then maybe a little bit about it.
Sure. The working, not working title, actually. I kept saying that for so many darn months. So I'm going to explain to you again, Larry. I suck at giving titles to things.
No.
So whenever I send a magazine article in to Diana Rupp at Sportafield, I'm tempted to just leave it blank because it's never going to come out with the title I had. I won't even tell you what the darn title of the book was that I had, which I thought was very good. And my agent and Diana, who read it and edited it for me like she did Bringing Back the Lion,
yes, sir.
They both looked at the title and said, yeah, I don't think so. So anyway, the title is Bringing Back the Wild because my agent and Diana suggested having that as a title to link it to Bringing Back the Lions. It's a very different book because it has, as you know, it has chapters on the conservation efforts and hunting all around, all over the place. North America, from British Columbia, the trip I went on that you know about where I hunted brown or black bear up there. We got a cinnamon color to Europe, hunting with your buddies from Scandinavian pro hunters and hunting with them in Sweden with Steph and Sophia and then Mexico and then, a bunch of African stuff. So all over the place.
Do you have a favorite of those destinations that you just mentioned? And that's a tough question, I know, because I get asked that all the time, and usually, my response, what my favorite hunt is. It's always the next one I'm going on. So I'm putting you on the spot. I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, and then I want to go to that because I do want to visit with you about the next hunt that you're going on.
Well, I appreciate that, and probably the one that fulfilled a lifetime of wanting and desiring. And you know how it is when you have a hunt that you think you'll never be able to afford to go on, and that it's a boyhood dream. And that one came from Ruark's book, Hunter's Horn, and he Horn of the Hunter, sorry, and he talked about leopard hunting, and I've always wanted to hunt a leopard, but I always knew that it was probably for this poor old academic professor dude. It was probably always going to be out of my price range. And then one good thing of COVID, and I would not wish that on the world ever again, but I had a buddy over in Namibia, Jamie Trout, who you know, and Jamie called me up and said, we need cash. And Namibia was the only country open in 2020. I was supposed to go to Mozambique and start book collection of book material for bringing back the lions. It was that far, and I couldn't get into Mozambique, couldn't get into South Africa, had to fly through Ethiopia to get to Namibia, and got to hunt a leopard. And so that chapter, I said at the time, boy, I was 12-year-old reading Robert Ruark and dreaming of hunting a leopard, and then when I got old enough to know how much it cost, figured, nah, I'm not going to do that. So now Craig Boddington, of course, gave me an awful hard time because it took him forever to kill a leopard, and I got mine the first night I sat in the stand, and he just, he said, well, I don't know how you managed to do that. And I said, well, I had a better area, better pHs than you ever had. And he really didn't appreciate me saying that. I don't know why.
and you should have mentioned I'm a better hunter than you are, too,
No,
Craig.
no, I don't believe that. And I don't
but I would have given Craig a hard time anyway. He and I go back, back when he was just first on staff with Peterson's hunting a long time, met him through John Wooders. You mentioned that you shot it. This is amazing. I mean, you and I've talked about this before. I actually made what started out to be a first leopard hunt, and we were going to do it with dogs in Namibia years ago. Unfortunately, the dog handler showed up just inebriated beyond imagination. We tried to go several times. I was hunting back then with Fred Burchell and Fred Burchell, and Fred goes, Larry, he said, we're going to get somebody hurt. We can't do this. So we locked this guy in a room for like 3 days, thinking, he's going to sober up. When he sobers up, we're going to go leopard hunting, because there were leopard tracks all over the place. We tried calling, we tried sitting on water holes, all those kind of things didn't do any good. And so anyway, we opened the door on that fourth morning, and what we didn't realize is that the guys that worked with him and for him were providing him with booze. So when it's all said and done, there's no way we could go hunt, because we really were afraid that can get pretty western at times with those leopards, particularly when they're pursued by dogs. And so my first leopard hunt came and went without ever going leopard hunting. And then I did go to Namibia, and we had just outside the Etosha pan there, and mine was not the first day, nor the second, nor the 13th, nor the 15th.
Oh no!
It happened the very last morning at like 10:30 or something like that, as we were getting ready to leave for calling it quits, and this leopard just happened to stroll by, and I was able to take him. But like there's so many of those animals like that. I was able to hunt elephant there as well too, and then I hunted lion, and of course buffalo, and all those, you're right, were just dream hunts that I never imagined I'd be able to do. But through the grace of the good Lord and a bunch of good people, I was able to get it done, kind of thing.
Well, we both of us grew up as redneck West Texan, Central Texan,
right?
Good old boys, and let's face it. I didn't even see a darn white-tailed deer around Abilene, Texas the whole time I was growing up. Now, it's a very good area to hunt them in now because of all the conservation work. But, back then, there wasn't a darn – I saw white-tailed deer tracks one time growing up outside of Abilene, Texas, and it was like seeing the tracks of a darn unicorn. I mean, it really was. It was like, I couldn't believe it. I had to ask my dad. I said, Daddy, what are those? He said, those are white-tailed deer tracks, son. I've never seen one here. And I said, yeah, I haven't either. So anyway, I mean, don't you love what hunters have done, though? I mean,
oh my gosh,
Texas, I see turkeys out there. We never saw turkeys when I was growing up.
No.
So anyway, it's all because of hunters.
It really is. It comes right into that. Like you, I grew up out west of Houston away, and I can remember as a little kid, if you saw a deer track, it was just, oh my gosh, you were a hero. And if you happened to see a deer during the hunting season, you were even a bigger hero. And if you happened to shoot one, which there weren't very many deer there, and so there weren't very many taken. I mean, you were the hero until somebody else killed one the next year. And now it's, gosh almighty, there's deer populations all over the state of Texas pretty much, and including some of the areas out in far west Texas, talking about along that New Mexico-Texas border, parts of the lower panhandle that have huge populations, or populations of both whitetail and particularly mule deer, and then the wild turkey. Oh my gosh, there's very few places in Texas where there is any kind of appreciable habitat that there aren't wild turkeys. So, and it's because of the dollars that came through from Pittman Robertson and a little bit from the hunting license, and then also some very dedicated biologists and game wardens, but truly also some very dedicated landowners and land managers that really have kind of brought back things as well. And so you're right. These days we're so very fortunate in so many different ways. I don't think so, excuse me, I don't think that sometimes those people who are around now that came on with the populations that we've had go, it's kind of hard for them to understand when I start talking, or you might start talking about, I remember the day when.
Well, and pushing it back even further than you were alive, Larry, 1900. I'm pretty certain you weren't around in 1900.
No, not quite, but.
I mean, remember, I guess in 1900 they said that by then, most counties of Texas, all those darn counties, white-tailed deer were extinct, and they were not very plentiful in any counties. So that's pretty amazing to think. What do y'all have now? 15 million? What is that? 5 million? 7 million? 2 million? Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's somewhere in that neighborhood right now, and maybe even higher. In that we went through, it really kind of depends. Texas is so independent, it is independent, but it is so dependent upon rainfall. And if we have good rainfall, it's amazing how the deer population responds right away. Of course, all the habitat responds, and then you have all these other game species, non-game species that come along. But you're right, we've got several millions of deer, and we've got quite a few deer hunters as well too that pay the way for all those good things to happen.
Yep. No, I did mention to a non-hunter friend the other day who I was having lunch with, I said, we were talking about Rocky Mountain, we were talking about elk.
Right.
And he said, are you kidding me? Do we have elk in the Southeast? I said, oh, yeah. I said, we have hunting seasons for them. I said, as soon as they get enough of them because I'm in Georgia, like, as you know, in northeast Georgia, and I said, as soon as they get enough of them in the mountains, I'm going to put one down because I want the meat. I said, I don't care what it is, as long as it's legal, I want the dirt meat. And he said, I didn't know we had elk. And I said, well, remember our white-tailed deer were extinct until 1930s, and that's when he growled, I wish they were still extinct. I don't want to get bitten with my car.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Yeah,
I said, no, you don't.
No. Thank God they're at the population levels that they are. And that, again, goes back to the hunting side of things. It's up to us as wildlife managers to maintain that population at levels that habitat can support. And doing so, everything benefits out there. And you kind of allude to this a lot in your book, whether you did it on purpose or not, I suspected you did, but, you know, I know in there several times you mentioned, you know, watching birds and all those kind of things. And because of the hunting and because of the habitat that's been, actually probably improved in so many different ways, where you have a greater speciation in terms of, or variety of species and plants, my gosh, it equates to, you know, I love to talk about seeing the butterflies and songbirds. And if it weren't for hunters, there wouldn't be as many butterflies and songbirds when you get right down to it.
Well, my editors complained to me sometimes about, and you read about it in the book, when I went to Cameroon, that,
yes.
you know, I got my red buffalo, you know, I published a story in Sportsfield called "The Buffalo as Red as My Hair," and I wanted one of those darn Savannah buffaloes in the worst way, and I got one, and it was a dream come true too. But you know, the organism I was most impressed with and fascinated by, and I crawled around on hands and knees while my PH and the trackers shook their heads, was looking at the termite mounds that I don't mean the real tall ones. These were like these little mushroom-shaped termite mounds that were about, 14 inches tall and wide, and they make these little caps on them so that it regulates the heat and the oxygen and all. And now I'm geeking out on you. And I just
no. I love this.
But those things were only there because of the hunters protecting that area from wood poachers and meat poachers, and then decimating then everything disappears once they've chopped down all the trees and everything else. So I'm like you, you know, I'm so grateful that, you know, God's nature's out there, because hunters are sitting there going, no, we're not going to let you destroy this. We're just not going to do it. We're going to pour our money into it. And even if we're not thinking about it directly when we go out to near Abilene, Texas, and hunting white-tailed deer, or in Cameroon hunting a Savannah buffalo, our dollars are so effective. They are so effective. And so I keep encouraging folks that hunters are good people. They really are good folks.
Well, I know in my book they are. For what well, let's say all of them are good for that kind of thing. You know, I know there's some people whose company I truly enjoy, and some people I enjoy, and, you know, and then I've been unfortunately around a very, very small number of people that I go, yep, that's the last hunting camp I'll ever share with them. But you know, they're still contributing, and they're still contributing dollars. Exactly. And to me, that's the important side of things. So I can overlook a lot of things, and you know, as long as they're supporters of hunting, the outdoors, and buying good ammunition, buying rifles, and all those other kind of things, I'll support them as much as I can as well too.
Well, and you know, we get such a neat opportunity, like another chapter in that book that you know about is when I went down and hunted some funky little animals, deer, that are related to our white-tailed deer down in Yucatan. You've done this. You know, the little brocket, little brocket deer down there, and you know, and then a couple of real funky looking birds that the curassow and the crested guan that I wanted just as badly as I did the little deer, but those areas are protected too, you know, and they're gorgeous in a different way, you know, dry tropical jungle down there, and I don't know, it's just special to be able to, you know, see, once again, going back to your buddies in Sweden, seeing all those areas that are being protected there for the exact same reason, because they have international hunters coming over. And boy, I tell you, you don't you slave hunting there, but the living is pretty good as a hunter when you're over in Europe.
Yes.
You know, or when you're talking about the fire pit being the snug in a pub, you know, you're going, well, I'm not really struggling here too badly. So, but anyway, I know you've been there a lot more than I have, Dirk.
And I can't wait to get back, to be honest with you.
I know, Europe's a favorite for me too now. You know, Larry introduced me to that. I was like, well, you know, I guess, and man, now that I've been, it's like, yeah, this is okay.
I want to go back to the jungle down south.
Yeah.
By chance, did you happen to run into or see any of the tapir that were there?
I did not on that trip. I ran into tapir when I was in Suriname for 10 weeks. We were spending most of our time in the jungle there. I was there for Carnegie Museum, collecting. I say we. This is going to sound terrible, but we killed everything that we could get our hands on that had a backbone. And
understood. Yes.
I mean, I was taking poison dart frogs, and that's nuts. Okay, I was doing that for a biologist up in St. Louis, and I didn't really think about the fact that the darn things were so poisonous. You know, you didn't want to handle them real because they don't like being handled, and they got a neurotoxin that comes out on their skin. But they were real pretty.
Yes, I've seen photos of them, but that's about the extent of my wanting to touch one of them. Is that even with the photo, you know, it's kind of like saying I'm not a huge snake fan. I know why they're here, all that kind of stuff. But I don't need, you know, if it's a picture of a rattlesnake in a striking position, and it's a photograph, I don't even like putting my hand close to where that mouth ought to be, kind of thing. That's kind of the way I look at those gorgeous frogs.
We were collecting fer-de-lance down there. I tried to kill one with. We were also getting bat poles. And this is a great anecdote of hold my beer and watch this. So I was carrying a load of bat poles on my shoulder because I was younger then and much stronger. And the darn thing was crawling across the trail. And I thought, you know, that'd be really great to collect. And I tried to kill it with a 15-foot pole. And let me tell you, you cannot kill a snake with a 15-foot pole if you don't want to get close to it. It's just not physically possible unless, I guess, you're built like a, you know, Cowboys linebacker or something like you are. But the thing about it is now going back to your tapir, we actually ate tapir, and we actually also ate capybara while we were there. And now I was young, and we were working all the time in the jungle, and I was always hungry. But they tasted good. I remember them being real good. So,
do they have a light-colored meat, or is it dark? I would assume it'd almost be pork-like.
Yeah, they are. I'm trying to remember, and I'm going to get it wrong if I tell you one way or the other. I just remember the meat was a nice texture and a good flavor. We also had armadillo while we were down there, and that one was accidental. We were chopping our way through one of the jungle areas to set up camp. They had dropped it. They always dropped us off in a helicopter because they couldn't land a plane in these areas.
Right.
So they would drop us off into a little clearing, and then we would chop our way in and clear out. It sounds a lot more romantic than it was at the time, by the way. But so we would set up a camp. Well, anyway, we were in this area, and we ran into this little enclave of Native Americans for there, South Americans.
Yes, sir.
And this lady came out and she talked to our interpreter, and his name was Leo. And Leo said, she's asking if you want lunch. Well, she's got 20-year-old boys there. And, of course, we were starving to death. We said, sure. So we sat down to this beautiful meal, and it was a curry dish because they have Suriname was a Dutch colony. And so they have a lot of curries down there because of the Indonesians that went in there, too. Anyway, so she fixed us this meal, and we were eating it, and boy, this meat was delicious. And it was, I don't remember, rice dish, too. And so we asked Leo, would you ask her what the meat is? And so he asked her, and she told him, and he said, oh, it's armadillo. And we said, well, it's delicious. And then we got to talking because we were biologists. The only armadillo in that area is highly endangered. So we probably ate the last pregnant female. That was probably the last armadillo known from that area, let me tell you. But darn,
oh my gosh,
we didn't. You know, we looked at one another and went, let's not talk about this until the statute of limitations runs out. For what we just did as these conservation biologists in this area, just ate the last and near extinct version of this animal.
Oh
so anyway, but armadillo's good. I've never had it in the States, but it was sure good down there.
I've eaten it here, and from what I recall, it's got like 3 or 4 different colors of meat. Everything from almost the lighter than chicken to some really dark, like you'd expect in venison.
I remember
or something
it being
that.
dark, like beef or whatever.
Yeah.
That's my recollection of it. Little cubes of meat. So the one thing we didn't eat or collect was we had Native Americans down there who were collecting for us too. They would bring in monkeys and stuff like that, and we'd skin them out and take the skeletons. They even brought in white-tailed deer to us, actually.
Yes.
And we made a boo-boo with that one. They brought it, dropped it in the camp for us, and we thought, well, this is really kind of them. They were gone back out on, hunting for us, and so we skinned it and we gutted it and we just cleaned it up, washed it down, and hung it back up in their camp. And Leo came to us and was furious. He was absolutely furious with us. And he said, "What have you done?" And we said, because the men had come back into the camp. And we said, "What do you mean? What did you do to that deer?" And I said, and we all said, "Well, we got it ready for him to cook." He said, "Mike, they cook it whole. They need the skin on it and the hair and everything. They throw it onto the fire with all the guts and everything else in it. They basically warm it up a little bit and then they eat it." And so we'd ruined their meal for them that night. By the way, the deer tasted real good because they gave it back to us. We didn't cook it the way they cook it, but it was a real tasty little deer, let me tell you. So anyway, they also brought in an otter one day, and it was little. I mean, it was about 5.5 feet long from tip of tail to tip of nose. And they brought it in, and I was the youngest one on the trip, so I got to do all sorts of fun things, like got to pull the flesh off of a rotting, what was it? Which one was mine? Some kind of a weasel-like thing that they'd found on the road. And they said, "Mike, we need you to pull all the meat off of this for the skeleton." So I got to do that. But they also sent me in, this little thing was still alive, a little thing, 5 foot long. And they said, "You need to check its dentition." And I said, "Explain to me why I want to look at the teeth on this thing."
As in getting bit by it to then compare it.
And they said, you've got to go up and look at the teeth and tell us whether or not it's mature dentition or whether this is a baby river otter. Which those things get up to 10 feet long or whatever. Huge things. And they're endangered. We weren't going to collect those.
No.
So anyway, the darn thing's on the ground making all these beeping noises. Real cute. And I thought, well, this is the last thing that I'll be called Lefty from here on out. And so I touched the thing and it rolled over on its back and put its little legs in the air a little. It was still big. And then I pulled its lips back, and darned if it didn't have immature dentition. It was a baby, or a real young one. And we paid them, and we told them, we got to let this go. It's a river otter. Giant river otter. We can't kill it. And we didn't want to kill it anyway. And so we took it down and released it back into the river. But they were the most perplexed people. They said, "But we would like to have it for dinner." And I was thinking, well, we'd skin the darn thing. You wouldn't want it for dinner anyway. But anyway, we ran across a lot of things. We did not eat a giant river otter. Okay, I just want to mention. We may have eaten a now extinct armadillo, but we did not eat the river otter.
But not the river otter.
But anyway, going back to your question, I did not run into tapirs in the Yucatan. I assume you did.
Oh my goodness, I have. But when I was down there hunting brocket deer, of course, I wasn't quite as fortunate as this guy I'm talking to about. I did take a gray brown, but it took quite a bit of doing. But I did see tapirs while I was there, including some 2 or 3 that were just absolutely huge. I have no idea what they weighed, but they looked like they weighed probably in excess of or close to 300 pounds. If I were just kind of guessing, they came into a water hole and fed there and stayed there for a pretty good while, and found them to be very, very interesting to watch. Pretty cool stuff.
Was it a family unit, a little herd or something?
They came in. They came in separately. It was an older female that came in by herself, and then the next day an older male came in, and then we had a couple of them that came in that looked like they were about 3/4 grown, comparing the size of those to the 2 that we had seen earlier. So it may have been a family unit at one time that was split up, or maybe it's just the way that they came into this water hole, on separate days kind of thing. But really, really, really interesting kind of thing. You're talking that I'm really tickled to hear that y'all tried to eat some of that stuff. Years ago, when I used to go to Namibia, at least once or twice a year, I'd go over there with Fred Burchell, and we'd have all these people coming, these people being collectors for various museums in Europe that would come down, and they would do the same thing. They were taking skins and skeletons, but they were not taking any of the meat. So Fred would, regardless they were, anything that crawled, walked or slithered, and to some extent some of the birds they were collecting, and Fred would have the guys save that meat off of it. And during the time frame we tried all kinds of different things that were, you would never, I have no idea what it was, and I have no idea what the status of it was or anything like that. But
don't ask
a lot of I found it better not to even ask things like that. But what I've realized in doing that is the way, at least that Fred's cooks prepared it, it was pretty darn good. We ate again a little bit of everything, and I wish I would have had the forethought, to record, so okay, and then ask, can we eat this legally, kind of thing, and just to have a list of it. But it amazed me that I really didn't eat anything when we were doing that. We did that over probably about 3 different trips. That wasn't good to eat. It was all tasted really good.
So I have a question for you. When I was in South Africa in the Eastern Cape, up in the Stormberg area, I know you've been there.
Yes, sir.
And up there it looks like Wyoming. Now, one of the things that I've written about a bunch, and people laugh about me. So I have a trophy shipment coming from that South Africa Mozambique trip. Dang, I tell you, I'm going to have to sell a kidney for that one. But anyway, coming across. And I just got news that it's ready as long as you give us your money to ship this darn stuff back.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Well, one of the mounts is a Daffy. I got a full mount of a rock hyrax.
Yes.
And I always wanted a rock hyrax since I'd learned about them as a biology student, and they've got some, they're the closest living relative to, this is crazy, to manatees, dugongs, and elephants. They are the closest to those things. You wouldn't, and elephant is the easiest one. Linnaeus, back in whenever, figured out that elephants and manatees were real closely related, and he didn't have any DNA to go by. So he was right back in the 1700s. But these little guys, I'd always wanted one. Have you hunted them? I should ask that first. Have you hunted them over there?
No, I have not. I've been with a guy, again, going back to, I'm trying to remember who the PH was that we were with, but they had shot 1 or 2 of them, and they were shooting them for food for the guys. And I actually had a chance to eat a little bit of it, and it was really, really good. It was kind of like maybe like probably the closest thing that I could think of right now would be like a young cottontail. It was that kind of texture and that kind of flavor, but it was really that's an interesting animal. They really truly are. I've seen them a fair amount, and they live in between the rocks more than anything else, I guess, kind of thing. And then, of course, I'm sure they're eating all kinds of grass and weeds and all that kind of thing.
They are, and they are doing that. They have their burrows, and the hawks and the eagles over there absolutely, particularly adore them. And they, just like prairie dogs, they have a sentry out there that's watching. And we hunted them with a little 22 Hornet, and it had a K4 Weaver on it. And his dad's, my PH's, I know, it brought back boyhood memories when I was using that K4. Beautiful little rifle. We were popping them, I shot 2, and my PH said, do they eat these? And he said, the trackers will love you, and they're going to want you to keep shooting these.
Yes.
And so I was I didn't get to eat one. Or eat any, and I was really sad, but I didn't want to invite myself over to the trackers family's dinner because they were so tickled with those things. They loved them. Absolutely loved them. But he said, oh no, they're going to want you to keep shooting them. And I said, well, I'll get a couple. It wasn't tiny, but I got one. He said, oh no, that's not trophy size, because he knew I wanted one full mounted. So anyway, we got one that was huge. I mean, it looked big to me anyway. So yeah, I've got one of those. So one of these days when you're over here for DSC or something, you're going to have to come up and see my Dassey.
I will. I will. You've got a deal. I may have to make a special trip over that way this summer sometime. Let's talk about you're getting ready to go on another African adventure here very shortly, as I recall.
Yeah, we're going across the end of May into the beginning of June. We're going back to Mozambique to hunt with Zambezi Delta Safaris again with Mark Haldane's group. But we're going to their new area in Massengeri, I guess is how you pronounce it, or Massengeri, I don't know. It's not spelt that way. It's sort of like that old thing off of Barney Miller where they asked the Polish dude, how do you spell that? And he said, just like it sounds, Wojciechowicz, you know? I mean, it's like wiping, you know? How the heck do you spell that? That's got an awful lot of consonants in it. But anyway, so Massengeri, and it's Mark's new area that they have huge buffalo and all this, but we're hunting, we're staying in that camp, but we're hunting an area that's his new crocodile hunting area. And I've always wanted to shoot a crocodile.
Right.
Until the other day, Larry, I'm getting an article ready for the whole story, you know, for Hornady about getting ready for this crocodile hunt. So I thought, I think it'd be great to get a photo of a crocodile's head and then put marks on it, little dots on it, as to where the shooting positions for the brain and the spine are. Larry, those are very small targets.
Even on a huge croc. Oh, you'll do fine. I've seen you shoot, so I'm not concerned about that. But you're right.
Lord.
That brain, even on a great big croc, and I've been able to, I've hunted them 2 or 3 times. I've never shot one. Each time when I've hunted them, the rivers were up 6 to 8 to 10 feet. They're in what used to be the Caprivi. And there was no way that if we shot one and it got in the water, we're going to lose it. So I would have had opportunities at one that was probably right at 15, but if I'd have shot him, we'd have never recovered, so we didn't. But while I was there, I was doing kind of what you were talking about there is I found some skulls that they had, some of the camps and things like that. And you start looking to see how big that brain is compared to, and how truly small it is and how precisely that bullet has to be placed. And then the same thing with the spine. I mean, just where it comes, where it comes out of the skull there at the Freeman Magnum kind of thing. And they're not real big targets.
They're not.
Not at all.
I'm looking at it going, they're going to be that's going to be an expensive splash. That's all I've got to say. So, you hit it, Mike, and there she goes. So, but that you just paid us for a crocodile, so wave bye to it. But it's gonna be challenging. But I am going croc hunting. But I tell you what else I'm getting to do that I've always wanted to do, even more than the crocodile. I'm gonna hunt a hyena, and we're gonna use thermal optics and go out at night. And we have it all set up for me to do this. And once again, I'm thinking, never shot anything at night using a thermal. This is another opportunity to have to go back to Larry Weisson and say, well, Larry, it went like this.
I can't wait to hear the story. I cannot wait to hear the story.
But we are doing that, and that's Mozambique. And then the last week, we're going to be going back to a place called Kalahari Oryx. And it's the largest, and they're about to expand it by something like 30,000 more acres, but it's about 220,000 right now. I don't know. It's all fenced because they have black and white rhinos in there. Last time I was there, we dealt with, because they had me there to, supposedly, not supposedly, we are collecting DNA samples, but any idiot
Right.
can go up there and pull the tail of a rhino if they're dumb enough. But they had me in as that idiot, okay? And I know everybody's like, well, how do you collect DNA on a rhino? And I said, real fast, and then you run the other direction because you're pulling hair out of their tails, and they really don't appreciate that, even when they're medicated.
No, I can see that.
So anyway, we're going to go supposedly this time, according to the outfitter there. He said, Mike, we want to move 20 white rhinos this time, and I'm thinking, we fiddle-farted with, excuse my language for the family units listening to this, but we fiddled around with 6 last time, and I was warned. I mean, I'm old. It takes a lot of work to move around an 8,000-pound animal, even when you got a lot of people who know what they're doing. So, but we're supposed to, they want to transport 20 of them out of there, and I think they're sending them to Namibia. And cool. As a staging area. So that's what I believe they're doing, but they've just got too big of a population. They got it, darn, rhinos eat an awful lot.
Oh, I can only imagine what their daily consumption is. Good gosh. Geez.
Yeah, so we are doing that, and that's going to be our adventure. So I will tell you that my wife and Mark Haldane apparently Mark Haldane is such a good friend. He WhatsApped me one day and said, hey, tell Frances that I have a croc over here that'll eat you if she'll split your life insurance with me. So I told Frances, this is literally true. I got the darn WhatsApp messages saved on my phone so that if it happens, the police can arrest at least 2 people. And so, I told Frances that, and she looked at me. So, what she looked like, and she looked thoughtful for a moment, and she said, write Mark back and say, I don't share. So anyway, apparently I'm getting eaten by a croc, and then they're going to have to fight over my life insurance money. I don't know. So either that, or I'm gonna be toe jelly on a rhino, and the same darn thing's gonna happen. So outfitter's gonna want to cut. So those are my buddies over there. I don't know why.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Mike. Let's go back to the book. What's the title of it again?
Bringing Back the Wild.
Bringing Back the Wild. And do you have any kind of idea as to when it will be available to the public at this point?
Well, I'm hoping mid-year this year. So it's been edited. The text is with them. They're setting that. I haven't seen the proofs yet. We do have the cover. It's done. We do have the guy set up to do the audio. And someone said, are you doing it? And I said, no, they need someone with a good voice to do this. They don't want me doing it. People will be turning that audio book off in a hurry if Mike Arnold's reading it. So we've got it all set up, and I'm hoping, I would love to see a July 1. I'm hoping it'll be before then, but we'll see. That's what we're looking at, though.
Oh, fantastic. That's not that far away when you get right down to it.
Not that.
Good gosh. Oh, my goodness.
No. And they say, well, it depends on your turnaround. Well, every time they give me something, me, about an hour and a half later, they've got it back in their hands. And they're like, oh, yes, we don't want it that fast. But anyway, so as soon as the proofs come in, I'll get those back to them, and then we'll have us a book.
Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to see that book. I'm telling you, because, like I said, I had a chance to read it on my computer with the different chapters, and oh, my gracious, that's going to be fantastic. I am thrilled to see you come out with that book. And it's going to be available, I know, a lot of places, but it's also going to be available through your website, I'm sure.
That is correct. It'll be, and I've got some little teasers on it, including the book cover that's out there now, and on my website now, MikeArnoldOutdoors.com is where they can go to if they just want to see the cover. And they can also Bringing Back the Lions is still for sale, obviously. It still will be off the website, but it's also, it'll be available off of Amazon. I'm sure that, there's been a couple of places who have asked me if they could carry my book as well. And so,
Perfect.
SCI does that on Bringing Back Lions, and it'll be on a few places, but people mostly buy it off of Amazon because it gets to them so quickly and that sort of thing.
Exactly,
and that's perfectly fine with me. But they don't get a signed copy. If they buy my books off of the website, then I sign them before I send them out.
Well, if they don't get you to sign it, what they'll have to do is come to the DSC convention, which will, again,
there
will
you
be
go.
in Atlanta this coming year in February. I just got the dates. I think it's like that first week of February. We're changing some dates there, but DSC will be back in Atlanta for a couple more years, and so kind of excited about that. And then we have to figure out a way to get you to the DSC Foundation Gala, which is going to be like the 17th, 18th, 19th, somewhere like through in there in July. And that might be an opportunity for somebody, if we can get you there, to pardon me, to get their book signed. And if they don't already have a copy of Bringing Back the Lions, they darn sure need to get one.
Absolutely. I'd love to be able to come across to the gala. The only thing that's going on and I don't think it's going to be that early, so I'm coming across for the EWA meetings in August in San Antonio, but yes. I was looking at the gala, because, I got that announcement from y'all again, and from what do I mean y'all? I'm a life member of DSC, from us again, and
yes.
So anyway, I need to do that. I need to get across to the gala because I haven't done that yet. I go to all the DSC conventions, obviously, and get to stand out there with Mr. Whitetail and greet everybody for breakfast. That was a lot of fun this last year, let me tell you.
Well, it really was. And, this year with the gala, it's going to be part of a consumer show. It's going to be kind of like a mini DSC show. With, pardon me, with vendors and all that other kind of good thing. So, pardon me, I think we're going to have exhibitor breakfast again. I'll be in touch with you. Maybe we can figure out a way to get you down for that again as well too.
That. I love seeing the folks come through. That's a lot of fun to me. I know a lot of folks were like, "You getting up every morning?" I said, "Well, Larry calls me every darn morning at 5 a.m. and says, get up, get your shower. You got to come greet people at the breakfast."
Ready.
No, you didn't do that to me.
No,
but I sure enjoyed it.
Well, obviously you and Miss Francis both did, because there were several mornings there that I think you beat me to the door and well before the time was for it to open up. And I usually prided myself on being the first one there. And it didn't happen that way because you beat me there.
Well, we had a lot of fun. But, yeah, you know what? I really do think I'll end up at the gala as well and get in there and be able to see folks and talk to people. So that'd be a lot of fun.
It will certainly be so. And with that, we want to remind them they can learn more about it by going to www.dscf.org and learn more there. And they can go to the Dallas Safari Club website, which is www.biggame.org, and that's biggame.org. And if they're looking to want to learn more about Dr. Mike Arnold, they can go to www, and I'm going to let you finish the rest of it.
Yeah, it's MikeArnoldOutdoors.com.
Perfect. We'll try to get to all that in the show notes as well, too. Mike, I know you've got probably some students that are probably waiting on you by now going,
yeah, you can tell I'm outside hiding right now, right, with birds in the background. But yeah, it's not students that are a pain in the rear end. It's our deans and all that sort of folks. Bless their hearts, I tell you.
Well, they probably kind of look at all that as part of their job and their duty to kind of mess with people occasionally. I remember correctly from many years ago. So, Mike, thank you so very much. Please give Miss Francis a hug for me, and we'll try to catch up with you here around the campfire again before too very long.
Okay. Thank you, Larry, for having me on.
Always a pleasure, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back here next week, and it'll either be a virtual campfire, and hopefully, if not, we'll be able to sit around a campfire and listen to the coals crackle and listen to the flames go skyward. Look forward to seeing you next week.
DSC's Campfires has also been brought to you by the Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, Texas Wildlife Association, Habit, Our Gear, Your Adventure, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.